What is the current state of the Democrat Party? I'm going to do something I shouldn't do and help them out and give them some answers. Our kids, protect them. The left is coming for them, and we're going to show you a disturbing video. Finally, Richard Branson apparently took a picture with too many white people. I mean that. Hang on. The Democrat Party, the National Democratic Party, is in absolute disarray. We're about to show you a whole bunch of examples of that, tell you why they got here, how they got here, and how they get out. I mean, I don't really know. Look at what they've got right now. They have an impeachment that's doomed for failure. It's only going to hurt them. It's going to hurt their presidential candidates. They have bad messaging. They have no control of it. They have bad presidential candidates. In fact, the candidates are so bad, they have new presidential candidates jumping in, and they suck just as bad. This is a party without a platform. This is a party without a plan. Now, nothing lasts forever. Eventually, they will figure things out, hopefully not anytime soon. But it's bad right now. If you're a National Democrat and you're looking at the state of your party, you better be real nervous. Nancy Pelosi took to the podium today after yesterday's disastrous impeachment hearing. And let me say this before we go to Nancy Pelosi. You know, yesterday's impeachment hearing was a disaster when even places like NBC News were printing headlines that said it lacked pizzazz. Essentially, all of America was bored to tears with what should have been the biggest, most exciting day of the impeachment hearing. People were confused. They don't even get what the accusations are. The accusations seem to change from day to day. And it actually gets much worse than that. Before you hear Pelosi speak, understand the pickle Nancy Pelosi is in. It is very real. She has to have an impeachment. She must push forward with this. Why? She promised their base 3 years, and not just her. All those Democrats in the House have been telling their base for 3 years. Many of them ran for election or re-election on, we're going to impeach Trump. Elect me and we'll impeach Trump. Elect me and we'll impeach Trump. Well, now they start this impeachment inquiry, and they don't have anything. Their star witnesses flamed out horribly. So what should she do? Well, if she doesn't stop this impeachment, if Nancy Pelosi does not find a way to stop this, once it's done in the House, this moves to the Senate, and we're already hearing rumblings about the Republicans in the Senate planning some really juicy things for it. They are going to make the Democrats look awful. Nancy Pelosi and the Democrat Party cannot afford to let this impeachment go to the Senate, but at the same time, they can't politically stop it. It's an unstoppable train. They signed themselves up for their own doom when they signed up for this impeachment. Nancy Pelosi absolutely knows it, even though she went to the podium today and did the best she could to defend it.
This isn't about for Democrats. This is for the American people. This is about patriotism. It's not about politics, Democrats, Republicans. It's not about anything political. It's about patriotism. It's about honoring our oaths of office and to uphold the Constitution, and the Constitution spells out what our responsibilities are and what our penalties are. And yesterday, I do believe the truth will set us free. And so the truth coming from the president's own appointee describing bribery, and threatening, in the course of it, threatening the identity of the whistleblower was just shameful behavior.
If you're a little confused as to what all that gobbledygook meant, you're not alone. I've seen that clip 3 times today. I still don't even understand what she's trying to say, and I have to be honest, and believe me, I am not being mean here. I don't think Nancy Pelosi knew what she was trying to say. I will mention again, before I play you another Nancy Pelosi clip about bribery, Nancy Pelosi's health is the most underreported story in the United States of America today. This is not some no-name jerkwater congressman. This is the Speaker of the House of Representatives. God forbid something were to happen to President Trump and Vice President Pence. She would walk into the Oval Office as President of the United States. And while I have never liked Nancy Pelosi, and I never will like Nancy Pelosi, I also can openly acknowledge that for years, for my entire life in politics, she has been one of the sharpest people in Washington, D.C. Look at this next clip and tell me, is this person still one of the sharpest people in Washington, D.C.?
The devastating testimony corroborated evidence of bribery uncovered in the inquiry, and that the president abused power and violated his oath by threatening to withhold military aid and a White House meeting in exchange for an investigation into his political rival, a clear attempt of the president to give himself the advantage in the 2020 election. Doing so, as I've said to the president, jeopardize our national security, undermine our national security, jeopardize the integrity of our electoral system, violate your oath of office.
People, it's not just me. And I want to reiterate this. Normally, I don't qualify things, and I have no problem being a jerk. I don't know what's going on with Nancy Pelosi. I wouldn't pretend to know. I will tell you I've had elderly people in my life go through similar looking things. It's not pleasant. It's not pleasant for the families. So I am not taking petty pot shots at her. I'm really not. But that is not a person who's doing that well. And for all the reporters who want to run news stories on Donald Trump's fitness for office every other day, hello, are you watching? I know you're watching, and I know I'm not the only person in America who sees this. Well, Nancy Pelosi has more than just that trouble on her hands. She has an impeachment that she knows is flimsy. Nancy Pelosi's no fool. She knows this impeachment is all smoke and mirrors. It's flimsy. She knows she's in deep, deep, deep trouble politically because she can't stop the thing. She knows all these things. I'm not telling Nancy Pelosi anything she doesn't know, but she has another headache on top of all that. She has a radical group of young congressmen who don't know how to message. They don't know how to shut up. They don't know how to stay message disciplined. The American people right now, no matter what Nancy Pelosi say, the American people, poll after poll after poll show, they view this impeachment as being a completely partisan political act. They do. So what's the one thing you don't want anybody going on camera and saying if you're thinking, oh, this is just a partisan political act? You don't want any Democrat congressman going on camera and saying, if we don't impeach him, he might win. Here's the genius that is known as AOC.
At the end of the day, we have to be able to come together as a caucus, and if it is this Ukrainian allegation that is what brings the caucus together, then I think we have to run with however we unify the House. And so while I believe personally that we should be pursuing and investigating quite flagrant abuses of the Emoluments Clause, even reporting as recently as the suspicious stops at Trump properties, even in congressional delegations, or rather in foreign trips. I think that all of this is game for investigation, but we also need to move quite quickly because we're talking about the potential compromise of the 2020 elections. And so this is not just about something that has occurred. This is about preventing a potentially disastrous outcome from occurring next year.
God, that was painful. That was painful. The Emoluments Clause and staying at Trump resorts and a potentially disastrous outcome for the election next year. What does any of that have to do with what they're trying to impeach the president on? You know, Nancy Pelosi, in her more lucid moments, looks at videos like that and thinks to herself, oh, God, what did I do to deserve this idiot? Oh, but it's more than just the impeachment disaster. The Democrats have no presidential candidates that are viable, and what's worse, they seem to know it. Look at Elizabeth Warren's new ad and tell me, does this person have any chance of becoming president?
It is time for a wealth tax in America. I've heard that there are some billionaires who don't support this plan.
The vilification of billionaires makes no sense to me. It's bull.
She would ruin what we have.
She probably thinks more of cataclysmic change to the economic system as opposed to tinkering.
Well, I'm most scared by Elizabeth Warren.
So here's the deal. You built a great fortune. Good for you. I guarantee you built it at least in part using workers all of us help pay to educate. Getting your goods to market on roads and bridges, all of us help pay to build. We're Americans, we want to make these investments. All we're saying is when you make it big, pitch in 2 cents so everybody else gets a chance to make it. I'm Elizabeth Warren, and I approve this message.
Okay, that's creepy, right? I mean, I'm not the only one that sees that. That's creepy. And not only that, it's not even viable. You have leftists, you have people who are not exactly card-carrying Republicans, but you have billionaire leftists out there who are already pointing out, she said what? What? Oh, and I probably should mention after that ad you just saw, Elizabeth Warren is the richest candidate in the field. Ooh, that's an uncomfortable truth. And she's the leader right now. Oh, but it gets worse, people. So you have a disastrous Democrat field, and now you have new Democrats jumping in thinking to themselves, look at all these morons, I better jump in. So you have Michael Bloomberg, who's about as cuddly as a sea urchin. He's jumping in the race soon, and apparently he's got a pretty nasty story. He's not the nicest person in the world to women. Apparently quite degrading about women, things women should wear, things women should do, a bit crass. Oh, it doesn't stop at Bloomberg. We have a new former governor of Massachusetts, Bevin, is getting ready to jump in the race. I know what you're saying. Who? Oh, don't worry. I talk politics for a living. I said the exact same thing, too, when I heard his name this morning. Yeah, that's not going to be a winner either. So what happened to the National Democrat Party? Well, a couple things happened. One, success happened. The election of Barack Obama gave Democrats complete control of the House of Representatives and complete control of the Senate and obviously the White House. And what happens when you get too much success? You spend a lot of time patting yourself on the back, not a lot of time staying hungry, honing your message. Also, the election of Barack Obama, it convinced the National Democrat Party falsely that the country was far, far, far left of where the country actually is. Barack Obama's charisma carried him to the White House. The Democrats nationally looked around and thought to themselves, oh, people must love socialism. That's why he's there. That wasn't why he's there. And now you see a party completely in the wilderness, facing a booming economy, and President Trump's going to crush any and all of these people. You can throw in all the Bloombergs. You can throw Elizabeth Warren in there. You can bring out Oprah. You know, they always talk about Oprah or Michelle Obama. If the economy remains this strong, the National Democrats are going to get slaughtered in 2020, and they know it. And they can't even get out of their own way on impeachment. All right. We have some important people from time to time come on this show. Coming up next, we have a governor. Governor Mike Dunleavy of Alaska gets to talk to me. All of that may have made you uncomfortable, but I'm right. Well, this is a special treat for me on this show. As you know, I am pretty low class and all that, but every now and then we do get somebody important who agrees to come on the show and talk about some politics with us. And today, we actually have the governor from the great, beautiful state of Alaska, Mike Dunleavy, on. President Trump actually put out a nice little endorsement saying my friend Mike Dunleavy of the great state of Alaska is being treated very unfairly by the Democrats because he's doing an unbelievable job on fulfilling every one of his promises. Now they are trying to recall him because his agenda is the economy, jobs, and protecting our military, Second Amendment, energy, and so many other things that the Democrats don't care about. Please stop the Dems from hurting a very good and hardworking man. Governor, thank you for joining us. What in the world are the Democrats trying now?
Well, Jesse, we were elected in November to carry out a specific agenda. That was to make sure that our budget is under control, that we are creating new jobs, that we are developing our resources, and that our public safety issues improve. So we started to implement that right after the election, and a mere two and a half months into the agenda, the session, they start to talk about a recall. And basically, you have some folks on the left that want to stop an agenda, And when we went through the process of vetoing portions of the budget, because we have a $1.6 billion deficit, we vetoed about $600 million. And the legislature did not overturn those vetoes. So there was enough people in the legislature that agreed with the vetoes. Then a number of groups and some other Alaskans got upset about the vetoes, which is basically policy. And this group is kind of riding the anti-veto wave into a recall.
You know, boy, and I applaud you for that. I wish every Republican, frankly, nationwide was on board with actually doing real spending cuts. I mean, we as a country, we're $23 trillion in debt because nobody ever seems to want to cut. But if you want to do real cuts like that, I applaud you for doing that for your state. Now, what is their response to it? Is it everybody's going to die just like the National Democrats do? Is that what they're saying?
Yes, when we first rolled out these reductions, and again, an effort to close this gap, the word on the street and in the newspapers and from some pundits was this is going to destroy the economy of Alaska. So we've been watching the economic indicators, and we just got information here the other day that our unemployment rate is at record lows. Our GDP is up again for the second quarter. First quarter was 3.6%. It's up 4.2%, the highest, higher than the rest of the country. We have about $5 billion worth of investment going in on the North Slope in oil production, new investment over the last year and a half. We have $500 million of investment going into the 10 Stevens International Airport, which is the second busiest air cargo hub in the country and the fifth busiest in the world. And personal income is the highest it's been in 10 years. We created 2,000 new jobs in the month of September. So all of the economic indicators are running in the right direction. And the gloom and doom that was projected or predicted with the reductions has yet to materialize.
Weird how that always seems to happen. When the government spends a little bit less, the economy gets just a little bit better. Now, I don't want to nerd out too bad for everybody here, but I know recalls work differently in different states. What do they have to do to get a recall done? What's that process actually look like?
Yeah, very good question. So, for example, if you go back, I think it was 2012 with Governor Walker in Wisconsin, that type of recall, which was similar to the one in California, I think in 2007 when Arnold Schwarzenegger came in and Gray Davis was voted out of office, those are like campaigns. In other words, they can call another election. Governor Walker had to run against other people. Gray Davis had to run against other people. In Gray Davis's case, he lost, and Arnold Schwarzenegger became the governor. In Governor Walker's case in Wisconsin, he won and just continued on being governor. In the state of Alaska, it's different. You have to breach or violate a set of certain standards. For example, corruption, fitness for duty, competence, etc. And in Alaska, if that goes on the ballot, really what the question is, do you retain this governor, Mike Dunleavy, yes or no? So you're not running against somebody. And so it's a little different here in Alaska. And the petitioners that want the recall have put a petition in stating that because of my vetoes, there were issues. They claimed that a judge was appointed later than should have been. All of these issues, most of the legal experts that we're dealing with believe that they don't rise to the level of a recall. And so the Division of Elections, for example, denied their petition. So now the folks that are in charge of the recall are going to take it to Superior Court. So we're probably going to have a court battle here for the next few months. But eventually the Supreme Court will probably decide whether it goes on the ballot or not. If it goes on the ballot, then it's a campaign, and we have to make sure that the people of Alaska understand what we did and why we did it, and why that's not a reason for a recall.
Governor, we opened up the show with just basically going over the current state, the disastrous state of the Democrat Party. Obviously, I'm never going to support the Democrat agenda, but I mean, nationally, they are a big old mess, and they keep walking into swamps, and their messaging is poor. Are you seeing that same thing at like the state level? Is that filtering down to the state, or are the states like yours, do they have a stronger, more disciplined Democrat Party? Because the one nationally is a disaster.
You know, the Democrats up here, they're small in registered numbers. I give them credit. They are organized and they're hardworking, but their agenda just does not appeal to most Alaskans. You know, when you look at the national level, and when you think about it, 6-7 years ago, who would have thought that a Bernie Sanders or a Warren would have been serious candidates for president? I don't think anyone would have. And so you've got an agenda that is swinging far to the left, a lot of identity politics, a lot of causes as opposed to really working for individuals. And I think what you have in Alaska, the agenda doesn't really work here either for them. And so they don't win state elections often. This is a way for them to try and undo an election. And this, in a head-to-head, like I said, in November, I won 51% to 44% against the Democrat opponent. They didn't like the outcomes. They were looking for reasons to try and overturn this election. And in my opinion, and the opinion of many others, this is their attempt to overturn the election.
Governor, I know you probably don't have your calendar right in front of you, but when I talk to a governor who's cutting spending like this, I have to ask, what's your schedule like for 2024?
In terms of running for re-election or some other office?
No, in terms of running for the presidency of the United States of America. Come on now.
I'm really focused on Alaska, and that's quite the question I got to answer, Jesse. But I'm focused on Alaska. I love this state. In my opinion, it's the greatest state in the country. I could go on and list all the superlatives about Alaska, but I'm focused on this great state. But thank you.
Why should people be visiting Alaska right now? Everybody I talk to says it's just one of the most amazing places you'll ever be. Why would you tell people to come up and visit Alaska?
It's America and then some is how I describe this to people. So it's probably the most spectacular state in the country, right? We have more coastline than the rest of the United States put together. We have the highest mountain north of Peru. We have deserts in Alaska. We have rainforests in Alaska. We're the furthest northern state. You knew that. We're the furthest western state. You probably knew that. We're the furthest eastern state. You may not have known that. The only thing we aren't is the furthest southern, because the furthest western Aleutians actually cross over the 180 degrees longitude. So we're in the eastern hemisphere, the western Aleutians are. So it's just an amazing state where in December it could be 65 below zero in Fairbanks, and in June it could be 100 degrees in Fairbanks within a matter of 6 months. It's a spectacular, incredible state. It's our only state that makes us an Arctic nation in America. And it's 2.5 times the size of Texas. I could go on and on and on, but people that come to Alaska, they have nothing but great things to say about their visit.
Well, sign me up, Governor. Governor Mike Dunleavy, thank you so much for giving us some of your time today. Stay strong up there.
And Jesse, if people want to help, they can go to standtallwithmike.com, standtallwithmike.com. We could use the help, and I appreciate it, and good luck with your show. Thank you very much.
Standtallwithmike.com. Ladies and gentlemen, go help him out. We don't need to be losing states, especially great ones like Alaska, to the Dems. Let's stop that craziness before it starts. Now, moving on to our classrooms. I mean, I'm not going to do this cheesy cliche line of, our children are the future, but actually, yes, I am. Our children are the future, and what they're taught in schools, we need to monitor it closely, and what we're teaching them now is insanity. I'll show you in a second. Our children are the most important thing we have. Now, this is not some cheesy Werther's Original commercial or something like that. That's just the simple reality of life. Your kids, my kids, kids everywhere are precious. They need to be guided. They need to be protected. And the left is after your kids. No, that's not some crazy radical statement. People, we have example after example after example of the left, especially today's radical left. They are coming for your children. They are trying to normalize every kind of nutso leftism. They're trying to normalize every kind of mental illness there is, so your children will wake up and be precious little leftist robots one day, and you had better start taking very, very, very seriously what they're trying to do. Now, let me tell you something. This is a bit of a disclaimer before I play you this video. This is, even though I'm a horrible person, this is and will always remain a family show. I take a lot of pride in the fact that people write me and tell me they sit down and watch this as a family. They sit down and watch this with their kids. That will always remain the case. Don't worry about that. But it's disclaimer time. The video I'm about to show you is gross. It's disturbing. And unless you've had the talk about the radical leftism, all this tranny nonsense, unless you've had that talk with your children, you may want to sit out this next 30 seconds to a minute or so. All right, now that I've given you that disclaimer, I'm going to play it for you. It's ugly, it's disgusting, but I want you to take it in because this is not some distant utopian future. This is now in the United States of America. Watch this.
Gender is how you feel on the inside about whether you're a boy or a girl, a man or a woman. If you're non-binary, feel like neither or both. People can also be fluid, feel more like female, more like male, based on a different day or time. It's really individual.
Absolutely.
Everyone born with a vulva is a girl. True or false?
Or identifies as a girl. Well, not everybody is sure, and that makes sense. But our genitals actually don't determine our gender. So some people born with vulvas can be boys.
In my 20s, I decided to become a drag king, which we don't hear about as much. Like drag queens are in the news all the time, but a drag king is a little bit different. So for me, it was, in my daily life, I was a girl. But then when I went on stage and I wanted to perform, I would perform as male and I would use he, him pronouns.
All right. All right, that's flat out disturbing. Those are small children. Look at what they're doing, and not only are they doing it, they're not doing it behind your back anymore. They're doing it right in your face. They're bragging to you about doing it. They're telling you they're not going to stop doing it, and on top of all that, they're going to shame you for speaking out against them doing it. Screw them. Speak out anyway. Those are your children. Those are my children. This must be stopped. This must be stopped here and now, or we are just going to have this culture rot out beneath us. Don't you dare accept from anybody that you have to accept and celebrate anybody's weirdo mental illness they have, and don't you ever accept from somebody that you have to pass that mental illness on to your children. That's disgusting, and it's wrong. If you want to go do whatever and cut off your Richard when you're 40 years old, that's fine. Go do it in private and shut up about it. Don't go do it and then try to brainwash the next generation of kids into thinking it's okay, and it's not okay. We've got drag kids dancing in drag on national television on Good Morning America while the hosts clap like barking seals. Oh, look how beautiful it is. Disgusting. And people, it's not that this is just happening in schools. The medical profession, the psychology profession is encouraging this and normalizing this and telling people it's okay. You remember that Texas dad who was fighting because his mom, well, the kid's mom, this guy's ex-wife, was trying to turn him into a girl? She has a PhD. Listen to this guy.
You're a boy, right?
No, I'm a girl.
Who told you you were a girl?
Mommy.
When did she tell you you were a girl?
'Cause I love girls.
Oh, I see. So mommy told you you were a girl?
Uh-huh.
Does mommy do anything else like with a girl with you?
Mm-hmm.
Like what?
Like dresses.
What does she do?
She do put them on me.
She puts dresses on you? Oh, wow. And what else does she do?
She buys my headbands.
Uh-huh.
And she get me hair clips.
Oh, hair clips? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What else?
Some microphones.
What else?
Like a skeleton.
Does she do anything with your fingers?
Yeah.
What?
She paints my nails.
Why does she do that?
'Cause I love my nail polish.
Oh. So mommy puts you in a dress and puts nail polish on you?
Mm-hmm.
And what does mommy tell you?
She tells me I'm a girl.
I can't even make a joke about that. That is a young boy who's having his young mind ripped apart by his psychotic mother. Luckily, the National Conservatives joined together and fought like we have to fight. Got judges involved, got senators involved, got governors involved, and put a stop to it. That kid is now the mother's been stopped from turning him into a girl. He has decided on his own to attend school as a boy, which is, of course, what he is. People, this fight is real. And it's not just tranny insanity either. You've heard me tell people before, it's real. In Seattle, they want to start teaching kids that math is racist. I ran an article yesterday from Marina Medvin. She's a great writer at townhall.com. She exposed the activism in her own kids' school. They're teaching third graders, that they have to be activists, leftist activists. You know, it's never a conservative activist. The left wants your kids. They want to manipulate the minds of your kids and normalize everything that is wrong and gross in this world. Do not let them. Don't you dare stand for it. And don't you dare let them silence you by all the threats they have out there. I know I'll get threats after this show. You know what? Take your threats and shove them. We're never going to stop doing it. We're going to talk to Liz Wheeler of OANN about that, host of Tipping Point on OANN, coming up in just a sec. Hang on. Welcome back, and before we get into more of this revolting child tranny teacher nonsense that about had me throwing up, I wanted to ask our guest, Liz Wheeler of OANN. She has a great show, Tipping Point, highly recommended on OANN, and has a book. She's a best-selling author called Tipping Points, How to Tackle the Left's House of Cards. Liz, before we get into this child disgustingness, let's talk a little bit about your book, because I actually get this question all the time from people. We point out that the left are a bunch of crazy people. They're gross. We know all that. But what do I do? What do we do?
Great. Jesse, first of all, thank you for having me on your show, and congratulations on your new show. This is so exciting. I wrote the book because I get that question too. It's actually the most common question that I get either via email or when I see people in real life, they ask me, you know, they say, I agree with what you're talking about. We read the same stories that you read, but what can I do? If I don't serve in government, what can I do? And so what I do in my book is I lay out tactics that people can employ themselves. You know, these are rhetorical tactics, strategic tactics, the truth about the revisionist history that Democrats try to peddle in schools. I just unpack everything that they do and give you something active that you can do to counter their strategy. So my hope is that when you put down the book, you view it more like a handbook. It's almost the antidote to Rules for Radicals, how conservatives can go about defeating the left and toppling their house of cards.
That is why I liked it, because we too many times, and look, I'm as guilty of this as anybody else, we complain. You know, it's easy to point out something that's wrong, but that's not actually offering anybody an action item, some kind of solution. So highly recommend it to all the Jesse Kelly viewers out there. Again, the book's called Tipping Points, How to Topple the Left's House of Cards. All right, Liz, that was it for the fun stuff. Now on to the disgusting stuff. We played the video last segment. I'm not going to play it again. I actually stole it directly off your Twitter account and gave you no credit for it whatsoever. It was this video of trannies in front of kindergartners, it looked like, maybe preschool kids, teaching kids about their genitals. And then we had an article from Marina Medvin we showed briefly about how they're teaching kids that they have to be activists and social justice. I mean, third graders. And it's time after time we see this. Seattle is teaching kids that math is racist. Liz, what's happening?
Right. So we talk about this. I'm glad you're talking about this, by the way, and I want to give you a big kudos because, believe it or not, there are a lot of conservatives who don't like to talk about this because it's an awkward topic to talk about. When we're talking about sex education, nobody wants to get on national television and talk about what they're teaching kids in school. So there are actually relatively few conservatives who are engaging in this culture war. And that's exactly what this is. This is the culture war. This is the left's efforts to form and mold and create the next generation of people who are going to pass on the radical leftist ideology. And one of the ways that they're doing this, of course, we know that since the 1960s, if not before, the radical left has wrapped up their ideology in some kind of sexual issue, whether that's pornography, whether it's birth control, whether it's abortion, whether it's divorce, whether it's free love in the 1960s, whether it's the hookup culture, whether it's gay marriage, whether it's transgenderism in this generation. Every decade for the past 60 years has had to deal with a social sexual issue from the left, because this is part of what the left does to try to destroy the traditional family so that people are rendered dependent not on their parents, not on their siblings, not on their relatives, but on the government, because that ultimately benefits the Democrat politicians, right? So when you see these videos, and I agree with you, this video is difficult to watch. It's shocking. These are children that are being told that they're any gender that they want, that just because they have boy body parts doesn't mean their gender is a boy. Just because they have girl body parts, it doesn't mean their gender is a girl. And it is incumbent on us, on you and me and anybody else who has the courage to talk about this, to expose it, because if we don't talk about it, our children are going to be taught it. And once they're taught it, it's really hard to separate them from the radical leftist ideology once they become adults.
You're 100% right. And frankly, and I know this may sound harsh, I do not take seriously anybody on the right who will not address this issue in any battle, anywhere. Whoever controls the supply lines wins the battle, and we've given the left all control of the supply lines over the next generation of voters. We wonder why we have all these idiot CEOs out there who are doing these crazy leftist things where they've been educated in these nutso schools for their whole lives, and we let them just abuse these kids, and now they come out and we wonder why they're a bunch of crazy people.
Right. Well, and I don't know what kind of words we're allowed to say on this show or not, but, and I'm not
No
particularly trying to call out with any malice our, fellow warriors in the conservative movement, but we covered a story on my show last week about a sex ed curriculum in Austin, Texas. And this sex ed curriculum is basically the same as the one in the video that you showed your viewers in the last segment. It talks about LGBTQ issues in graphic detail. It encourages experimentation. It normalizes what used to be thought of as inappropriate sexual behavior, especially for children. It talked about specifically anal sex. This curriculum taught third graders about anal sex. And you know what? We asked almost every conservative that I know to come on my show and talk about this, to talk about how this is brainwashing children, and nobody wanted to go on national television and say anal sex. And I can't say I blame them. It's awkward. I would prefer not to have to say those words either. But if we don't, we are ceding this battle to the left. And if we cede this battle to the left, then we're not going to have the opportunity in the next generation to talk about social issues, because the entirety of the next generation is going to have been indoctrinated by the left. And that's where we're going to be.
Oh, you're right. And our discomfort to talk about things like this is the exact reason the left has gotten win after win after win for decades on it, because conservatives are all just washing their hands of it. Oh, this makes me uncomfortable. I'm not comfortable with it. Well, the left is perfectly comfortable with it. And when it comes to kids, you need to open up your mouth the same way you're doing it. I'm glad you're doing it. Now, when it comes to schools, I hate government schools, but I'm a radical nut job. If I had my way, we'd fire every government school teacher and demo all the buildings and go back to no public education at all. I understand that's not mainstream. It's not going to happen. So what should parents do? Run for school board? I mean, everybody can't afford to put their kids in private school. Should we move to homeschooling? I love the idea of homeschooling. What do we do?
Well, there's a couple of things that you can do. First of all, if you have the capacity to homeschool your children, that's a good option, because then you are controlling what goes into your children's minds. You are the parent. You're part of the formation of your child, the education of your child. That is your role as a parent. That's not the government's role. It's your job as a parent. Now, if your only option for education for your child is a public school, that's different, but it's not the government's responsibility to educate your child. So homeschooling is a perfectly valid option. I was homeschooled from kindergarten through high school, and I highly recommend it. I enjoyed the experience as a child, and it served me very well as an adult. Private schools can be a good option too, but that only applies to a certain segment of the population. There are a lot of people that say, well, I don't have the capacity to homeschool and I don't have the money to send my kid to private school. Those people, there is a solution for that. And it's a solution conservatives don't talk about because it's not a very exciting idea, but it's a solution that really can fix the liberal indoctrination problem in our schools. What I'm talking about is school choice. I know it sounds boring. I know it's not a sexy campaign slogan, but this is how it works. If we have school choice, meaning voucher programs, what happens is when you send your child to a public school, you send your child with a certain amount of money. You as a parent are basically allotted a certain amount of money for your child, and you send your child with that money to the school. So then if the school is engaging in revisionist history or poor education practices or radical sex ed curriculum, anything that you don't like, you can go to the school and you can say, I'm going to take my child out of your school if you don't alter your curriculum and allow me as a parent to participate. Right now, if you do that, schools are just going to say, okay, honey, sure, see you tomorrow. But if that you actually had the money that went with your child and you said, I'm not just taking my child out of your school, I'm taking the money out of the school, then they're going to have to listen because everyone knows that money talks. That is the best strategy for conservatives to eradicate liberal indoctrination, because what's going to happen is when enough parents remove their children and their money from those schools are either going to be forced to change and listen to parents, or they're going to shut down.
Liz Wheeler killing it today. And it should be pointed out that she was homeschooled and now she's a best-selling author. I went to public school and I can hardly read or write. Liz Wheeler, host of Tipping Point on OANN and author of the book, Tipping Points. Everybody go out there and get it. Liz, appreciate you.
Jesse, thank you so much.
Be good. Richard Branson apparently took a picture with too many white people. Wait, what? We'll talk about it in a sec. Is it possible to have too many white people in a picture? Well, apparently it is. Billionaire Richard Branson took a picture in South Africa. It's just a picture. It was just Richard Branson with a bunch of friends, co-workers, and he caught backlash for that picture because apparently there are too many white people in it. I'm not making this up, people. The backlash was so bad, Branson had to issue an apology saying the Branson Center of Entrepreneurship is all for South Africans. But yesterday's choice of a photo to go with my tweet clearly lacked diversity. Apologies. I hope you will take a look at my blog, which does far better justice to the amazing work of the center and its team. Okay, well, we can take a moment and laugh at Richard Branson and laugh at all the idiots who are mad about that. That's fine. But understand something. It's very difficult for somebody like you, for somebody like me, to make sense of that kind of insanity. Crazy people are hard to understand. That is what makes them crazy. But you do need to get, there is a segment and a growing segment of the population who will look at a picture and instead of just saying, oh, there's a picture, they will look at a picture and say to themselves, wait a minute, that's not enough white people. He doesn't even have an Asian. You know what? He has 5 men and 3 women. There is a growing segment of this world who thinks like that, ladies and gentlemen. And yes, they're crazy. Yes, you should mock them. Yes, you should do everything in your power to make their lives miserable and stop that kind of madness. But understand something. They do exist and they are not going away until we tell them what we should be telling them. Shut up. Nobody cares about your outrage. The problem is, even billionaires like Richard Branson, they bow to the rage mob. They issue apologies. Don't apologize for that crap. I'm not sorry. You know what? I'm going to find 50 more white people and take a picture with all of them. That's your response. Never, ever, 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 ever bow to the rage mob. It's just like bleeding in the water in front of a great white shark. Tomorrow, it's Friday. Do you think maybe we have a fun show planned for you tomorrow? We do.